Gonna be you and me. Gonna be everything you ever dreamed. Gonna be who you need. Gonna be everything.
Since the original DJI FPV drone and then the amazing Avata series, FPV has been opened up to me in a way that I never thought would be possible. Although I'm no expert, the fact that I'm able to fly in manual mode is something that I'm very confident would never have happened if I had to go through the routine of building my own drones like so many in the FPV niche do. It seems the rise of a more simple and low hurdle way to use FPV drones is something that has captured the imagination of blue light users, including the police. Today we're going to enjoy a chat that I had with Lincolnshire Police's chief drone pilot and one of the first police users that I noticed regularly using the Avata and now the Avata 2 from DJI. Keep an eye out for some more content on the Geeksvana channel on this topic, including the use of lighting systems like this one from Edinburgh Drone Company that assists the operator to see even in the darkest of locations when hunting down their target. And I'm joined today by Kev Taylor of Lincolnshire Police. Kev, hi, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Sean.
Now you're the chief pilot and the manager for the drone side of things for Lincolnshire Police, is that right?
That's right. So chief pilot, flight safety manager, basically covering the whole of the drone operations on behalf of the police force.
Regular viewers may recognise you from a previous video that we did together, which actually covered the camera drone operation side of things and looked at some of the use cases where the camera drones were obviously put to very good use.
We're doing about 1,400 deployments a year at the moment, so around about 120 deployments a month. To all those different types of policing incidents, be that a high-risk missing person or a suspect that's gone to ground and so on. And that just continues to be quite stable at that kind of 120 a month.
Today, we're going to be talking about a bit of a specialism within drone use. And this is something that I think Lincolnshire Police were one of the first forces that I first noticed personally using FPV drones in day-to-day operations. And that's something that's obviously quite unusual, quite exciting. But you are now integrating FPV drones into a lot of use cases within policing.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, it's not the bread and butter that the drones outside and the external use of drones is, but certainly it has its place and for very specialist incidents and what really can be high risk incidents. So we do use FPV outdoors. So it's quite useful to use them. Say we've got a vehicle in a water-filled ditch and we want to go looking through the window rather than risk one of our larger outside drones a little bit more expensive and a little bit bigger. Obviously, we can use an FPV and push it up against the window, even if we want to have a look at for a suspect. These are often high risk jobs, so we're talking about firearms type incidents or incidents that involve weapons, where we don't want to put an officer too close to the threat. So we'll put an FPV drone, be that through a door of a property, up to a window of a property, into that building or that bus or whatever it may be.
What type of FPV drones are you using though? Is there any particular specific?
Yeah, we're using the Avata 2, and that's the bread and butter one for us. Obviously, it's just a daylight camera, and we don't have thermal on that. So it's not tactical in a military type sense, but what it does do is it's flexible. It's sensibly priced in that if we put it in somewhere and it gets a baseball bat through it, at least we know what we're dealing with. Rather we can replace the drone, we can't replace an officer, Sean.
I remember when I first saw you flying FPV and putting things out on social media about it. It was the Avata 1, of course, but the Avata 2 has kind of leapt things on, hasn't it? And I understand for policing use, things like the fact that it can sit for switched on for a much longer period of time than the Avata 1 can. There's little subtle changes that perhaps weren't the intention when they designed it, but obviously for police use has actually been quite good.
Absolutely. So we do what's called perching. So you know, you imagine the FPV is going to fly and keep flying, but not necessarily for us. If we can, if we have to put an FPV into a property and we know on the other side of that door there is, you know, an armed or dangerous type of suspect, then that may just sit outside that door, just watching to see if that door opens and that person comes out. And we will use them in negotiator type situations as well. So we can actually carry some things. So we could carry a mobile phone in, and things that we want to negotiate where we've got that high risk situation. As you know, some incidents do go into a prolonged negotiation phase. So they have a little bit of a use of carrying stuff in as well. So we've got that ability if we need to use that. It might seem a bit strange, but for example, a good example of that would be to deliver a mobile phone and to somebody, rather than us send an officer to take that mobile phone and put it outside the door, which puts an officer at risk potentially to a dangerous suspect. We'll deliver it outside the door with the drone. Certainly the perching thing is a big one for us, because we'd get about 7 minutes out the Avata one, then it would overheat, and then it'd switch off, and then that drone was out of the game. But we do carry multiple as well, so we are accepting that we may lose a drone on an incident, and we will always have another one to put in as well. So I'm not saying they're disposable, and we've never lost them yet.
Yes.
But sometimes it takes us a while to recover them. It'll go in, we might lose it, and we'll recover it later.
So in terms of control method, are you using the motion controllers or the full sort of Xbox style controller, or is it a mixture of those?
Great question, and we've got both options. So we've got the RC and we've got the motion controllers as well. When I first started, I used the motion controller and I absolutely loved it. I found it was so nimble, especially when you're going into something where, because obviously with the RC, you need to put the camera down, get the angle of the camera right, understand what angle you've got a camera, and then move the drone in that direction. Whereas with the motion controller, it's a very natural, you know, you point it down and that's where you're going to go. So when we've done training and people really want to use the officers that already want to use the RC, they said, just have a go with the motion control. And they realize that inclines, getting in through tight spaces, it just does lend itself much better to the motion controller. The options there, all the kits carry both the motion controller and the RC, and it's purely the pilot's choice. But a number of pilots who said, oh no, I couldn't consider using the motion controller, have all switched. So very, very few people continue to use the RC.
Presumably, with this type of flying, you're using the stabilized flight modes rather than the full acro manual modes.
The one thing that's really important for us is to have a good set of lights on the drone, because obviously the vision sensor is dependent on some visible light. Even if we're sending it into a little area, we'll still put the lights on, switch them on before we go in. Because then we'll probably inevitably end up going to something that's a little bit dark.
You very kindly provided us some use cases. The first one was a Lincolnshire grow house. This was fascinating from the point of view that of course, again, it's being able to get a drone into a situation that could be dangerous for police officers.
There's a couple of things. First of all, with the growers, there often are people in there, so we really want to detain those people. Problem is it's very dangerous for us to go straight into a cannabis grow because the electrics are bypassed, often done by people who are not obviously qualified electricians, and the electrics themselves can be quite dangerous. They do booby trap them, so they will wire any metal items up to mains, so that if you touch it, you'll get a full electric shock. And there will be other types of booby traps in there as well. Some pretty horrific ones where things will come down. So one is we're looking for the traps, but two is we're looking, is there actually somebody in there? Because a lot of them have farmers that live in. So rather than us putting officers in, we'll get a containment on the outside and we'll put the drone through and just see if there is anybody in there. And then, there's been scenarios where we've actually can't work out where the electric's coming from because there's no electric supply to that property. And they've actually dug up the footpath outside and put their own cable in from a main supply. So there's no way for us to actually switch the electrics off to that property because it's actually coming from another source. So more than one occasion, I've had to actually follow the cables and look to see where the cables go to.
You very kindly provided some clips in terms of the firearms training. And again, it makes total sense. Again, it almost feels like the FPV drone has a an almost police dog feeling to it, but of course that police dog has a camera on it that you're controlling, and of course you're not even risking the dog at that point either. So on the firearm side of things, I can see that it has a lot of value on those jobs.
So we do have specialist firearms police dogs, which are very, very clever, and they will indicate if they find people and things like that. The key thing with the drone is we can decide which direction we want it to turn, left or right, which is very difficult to do when can't see what the dog's seeing. So you'll get those indications back. The reason we use specialist dogs is because if we put a dog in and the dog gets attacked, the dog is going to defend itself. And therefore we then have a duty of care to actually look after that person who's now attacking our dog, because our dog is obviously going to bite it. There is some quite stringent rules around putting dogs in. And of course, there's other things such as broken glass, needles and things like that again could pose. So what we might do is just put the drone in first before we put the dog in. So it's not a either or, it's we complement each other. We've had it where we've had a dog in and a drone in at the same time, because the dog's scratching away and indicating at something, but we don't know what it's indicating at. So we send the drone in to see what the dog is scratching at, and it's a wardrobe. So we then understand.
And one of the other clips that you said, which we'll be playing now, is triage of an accident staged within some railway coaches.
So every year we will always do a train crash exercise and an aviation-based crash exercise. That we will always do that every year. What we were able to do on that one, and nobody ever wants to have to do this for real, but at least let's prepare for it. Training is a big part of everything we do, especially with a new skill and a different kind of skill. So that as a training scenario for us is great. We learn some lessons between the training scenarios and the actual real scenarios, that are things that are different, and I can come on to that in a minute. But in that situation, with a train crash as an example, we wouldn't immediately be putting paramedics in. We'd have to make sure that the electric's disconnected and it's safe, and that the carriages are showed up and they're not going to tip over when somebody walks in and knocks them off balance. So there would always be that delay. And with that one that you're showing, it literally is 1 minute in each carriage to do a casualty assessment. And literally what we are doing, and what we were able to do with that, is actually download that casualty assessment to the East Midlands Ambulance Service to say, this is how many conscious, this is how many conscious and breathing, this is how many appear unresponsive, and these people appear to have these injuries. And we're literally able to give them the number of casualties, and they are actors. So if you're showing them on that appear to be injured, they're actors in those carriages. And yeah, we're able to fly through and say, yeah, that carriage has got 12 people. We can see 8 conscious and breathing and 4 that are not responsive.
How would you suggest, if somebody is a young person out there who's considering policing, considering drones, and wants to bring those two things together, how would you suggest they go about that? Do they become a drone pilot, or do they become a police officer and then go into the specialism?
It varies from force to force. Within our force, the way that we're running it is that we've got myself and a deputy who are employed full-time as members of staff. So we are civilians, even though, as you know, I'm a special sergeant as well, and I do volunteer to do my policing duties. And then the police officers, they join, they do the 2 years probation, and they specialise. And some of our officers are dive officers, some search, some are public order trained, and some go on to be drone trained. And at the moment, we've got 32 in Lincolnshire that are drone officers. They come on shift. Every day will be different. They'll get the car at the beginning of the day. They'll put the taser onto their kit. They'll have a big red key, for method of entry in the car, potentially, all that different equipment. And one of the things they have in the back of the car is drone, and if they can use it. And we're not stringent on that. There's got to be a set process for deciding whether a drone can help at that instant. If there's any way a drone can help, let's use it.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Keep up the great work in terms of putting such a good use case of drones out there, because of course this is a positive example for the public as well, in terms of the feeling that they're going to have towards drones when they see things being used in such a positive way. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for all your work.
You're very welcome. Thank you.